What is up, guys? Welcome on into Pickswise Playbook, Week 6 edition presented by Superbook Sports. I'm Lauren Jabara. We got Jared Smith, Tank Williams. It's crazy to think that we're already here. It's Week 6. We're really seeing some of these trends start to develop with these teams and maybe the identity of who some of these teams are going to be heading into the rest of the season. Jared, we're at Week 6. How you feeling?
Yeah, the schizo personality nature of some of these teams, volatility, obviously the NFL. I mean, we predict what we think is going to happen, and then we watch the games, and things don't always play out that way because of all the craziness that we're seeing in the league. But again, the personality of these teams are starting to present themselves. We have another data point that can point us in the right direction for where things might work out this week.
And we talk about the man, the myth, the legend with a whole lot of personality. We got Tank Williams played for the Titans, the Vikings, the Pats. And your Vikings, you have to be happy with how they're playing right now. 3 straight wins, going for number 4 this week. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. It's amazing what you can do. It means winning when you get the ball in your playmakers' hands. Dalvin Cook balled out, Justin Jefferson balled out, but I'm anxious to talk about a lot of the overcompensation going on in the league right now. So I can't wait to dig into that as the show progresses.
Yeah, we have a lot to dig into, but how can I forget? I need to say this right off the top. He was a first-team All-American in 2000.
Let him have it.
We can't do a show.
Say
it loud
ain't a show
for the people
without
in the
it.
back, people.
Can't start the show without
Honestly,
that
let's just
thing.
cut the show now. We're done. Let's just cut the show. We're done. That's it. That's all we need.
No picks.
There
no
are
trends,
a lot of
nothing.
There are a lot of big NFL season betting stats after this week. Unders 47 and 33, hitting at a 58.7% rate this season. The best under teams, the Bengals, 5-0 to the under. The Colts, no surprise to anybody, 5-0 to the under with the way their offense is playing. And the 49ers, 4-1 to the under, thanks to how solid their defense has been all season. And maybe a trend that some people wouldn't expect through 5 weeks. The Falcons actually 5-0 against the spread. That's through wild. 5 weeks of the NFL season. So something to definitely keep in mind heading into Week 6 as the Atlanta Falcons are going on in to play a good game against the 49ers. So could be a fun one. But biggest surprises from Week 5, and I know we were talking about this before the show started. For me, the biggest surprise is how good the Cowboys have been the last 4 weeks without Dak Prescott. And a lot of that has to do with their defense. They have the best D-line, in my opinion, since the early 2000s. Their speed, their movement, the way they use guys. Other teams, I feel like, are nervous to go into Dallas and go up against this D-line that they have. They won their 4th straight game, and they did it against the reigning Super Bowl champs in the Rams. And this is the first time allowing fewer than 20 points in each of their first 5 games of the season since 1972. Now, Tank, I want to go to you first because just watching the Cowboys defense, I'm not saying Cooper Rush is phenomenal by any means, but he's definitely kept pushing that offense forward as well. What have you seen from them, and have they been a big surprise for you through 5 weeks this season?
I mean, I think it's definitely a surprise, and obviously you have people talk about, oh, what are the Cowboys going to do when Dak Prescott is healthy? Like, Dak's going to play. Dak is that dude. But that being said, when you're a backup quarterback, your job is not to lose the game and let your playmakers play. And that's what we've seen out of the Dallas Cowboys. They found their running game again. The wide receivers are stepping up. Most importantly, what you've kind of focused on, that defense has just been phenomenal. And I was trying to think about some comparisons back then when I played. Like, obviously, when I played with the Titans, we had a really good defense. Javon Curse off the edge. We had Albert Haynesworth in the middle. But now that I had the opportunity to think about it a little bit, another defense that was in our division, the Indianapolis Colts, where you have Dwight Freeney on one side, Robert Mathis on the other. I mean, that's something that kind of stands out to me because you have a Michael Parsons, and then you also have on the other side Tank Lawrence, who isn't a slouch. So those dudes can wreak havoc on the opposing quarterbacks. That's what we've seen, and that's why the Cowboys have been able to string off these 4 wins in a row.
Yeah, you talk about Dak Prescott being that dude. You want to know who else is that dude? Is Micah Parsons. He is the most athletic and, in my opinion, the best player in the National Football League this season. Jared, I know you have a couple good stats on him. But if that guy was running at me full force, I think if I was the quarterback, I'd turn around and start running the other direction. To be honest with you, I'm scared of him.
So Micah Parsons this year, the only player in the NFL top 3 in sacks, tackles for loss, and QB hits. And again, those statistics are slightly correlated. Tackles for loss would be the one that's kind of the outlier because usually those are defensive tackles, not edge rushers who typically aren't as involved in the running game. So it just shows he's everywhere. And he's got 19 sacks through his first 21 games. That's the second most in NFL history. Joey Bosa had 20 in that span. And I know it's a different game than it was. The quarterback sack numbers are a little bit higher. Teams are throwing more. There's more opportunities for sacks. But it just shows how dominant he's been. And I think it's very fair to say he is the best defensive player in the league.
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's awesome. And honestly, I want to give a little credit to Mike McCarthy, too. He does deserve some credit with the way he's been coaching this team, with the players that he has and the injuries that they've been dealing with so far. I know Dak Prescott is practicing this week. Jerry Jones obviously said, he needs to see him throw a spiral. He said that like 4 times. He's got to throw a spiral. Mike McCarthy said he wants to see him practice for a full week. So it will be interesting to see moving forward in the next couple of days if Dak will get the start or if he's going to have, another week to kind of recover before taking charge under center heading into week 7. So we'll keep you updated on that. But let's get us into some Week 5 key matchups, starting with the Vikings taking on the Dolphins. The spread right now is at 3. The Vikings laying 3 points, the total 45.5. Vikings trying to extend their winning streak right now to 4 games. They beat the Bears last week. A lot of thanks to Delvin Cook for him. And then the Dolphins, they lost their second game in a row, 40-17 against the Jets. I know Jared was probably excited about that one. Skylar Thompson came in after Teddy Bridgewater went down with a concussion injury. Tyreek Hill also dealing with an injury right now. Tank, I'll go to you first with this one. I know the total set at 45.5. With the injuries that the Dolphins have and the way that the Vikings have been playing, would you feel confident betting the over or under? Or are you leaning more of a side in this game?
See, that's the thing. I really wouldn't feel comfortable betting the over in this one just because there's too many question marks for the Dolphins right now, especially when you're looking at the quarterback position. Now, people are trying to say that Teddy probably wouldn't be able to come into the game again last week if it wasn't for the new protocols that were in place. Would the game have turned out a little bit differently if Teddy Bridgewater were playing? I think so. But that being said, when you have some uncertainty around the quarterback position, you have Tyreek dealing with an injury, you have Jalen Waddle, who is also dealing with the growing injury going into that game. Then you have a Vikings team on the other side of the ball that's just playing sound football right now. They finally got Dalvin Cook going. Justin Jefferson had 13 targets. He didn't have a touchdown, but he had over 140 something receiving yards, something like that. So when you have your best players affecting the game in that way, I feel pretty good about what they should be able to do down in South Beach. But there was one nugget that I came across on social media. Like, the Vikings haven't won down in Miami since the 1970s. I think it was like 1975.
What?
I really couldn't believe that stat. That sounded crazy to me.
Wow.
All that being said, I would probably have to lean towards the Vikings probably covering this. What is it? I saw it at +3. I don't know. I'm not sure if it changed or something like that. I think I would feel pretty comfortable with the Vikings doing that. But at the same time, I mean, when they play a Chicago Bears team close the way they did, and they really haven't been able to kind of pull away from any team that they've matched up thus far, you may want to lean with the under. So that may be the safer play. But I feel pretty good about the Vikings winning this one.
Yeah, Jared, when you look at this Vikings team, in their 3 straight wins that they've had, they scored 28 points in each of one of those games. 28 points or more, I guess, in each one of those games. How confident do you feel in the Vikings laying 3 against a Dolphins team who that is average or less than average?
Yeah, so we have seen some movement here. Skylar Thompson announced on what we're taping this show on Wednesday. He was announced as the starter this week. Tua practicing, not playing yet, but good to see him back on the practice field. And it does look like Teddy Bridgewater is still going to be sidelined. So it will be Skylar Thompson getting, and he had a great preseason. Take that for what it is. It will be him getting a start. I think it's a bit of a different situation this week. It was thrust into duty last week where Teddy got hurt. I think it was on the first drive or the second drive of the game against the Jets. And then you throw Skylar Thompson into the mix, didn't have the first team reps. You would imagine he didn't get a ton of reps outside of the preseason because you had Tua and Teddy, as 2 established quarterbacks, at the 1-2 spot. So tough situation for Skylar Thompson to be thrust into last week. Now he'll get the full complement of reps in practice this week, which I think is going to help him immensely. I'm expecting this line to close at 4 or higher. I'm already seeing a 4 pop up in the market. and the Thompson news was just announced about an hour or two after we recorded this show. So I would expect more handle on the Vikings this week. There is an interesting nugget to bring up about the Vikings and Dalvin Cook. He plays well. He's from Miami. He plays well when he goes back to Florida. I'm looking at some numbers. Dalvin Cook in Florida against Florida teams. A lot of it, of course, was when he was with Florida State, but his one professional game at the Bucs a couple of years ago, 24, a buck 10 and a touch. And that was against the good Bucs defense. So I would say Dalvin Cook vibes very strong this week. I would say the Vikings offense against an aggressive blitzing Dolphins defense. That's where I am curious. Kirk Cousins does not like to be pressured. This is a Dolphins defense that blitzes more than almost any other team in the league. And they're with a backup third string quarterback. I think the defense is going to be, if Minnesota wins this game, it's going to be Kirk Cousins solving the blitz. We'll see if he can. He struggled in that spot. But I think the running game with Dalvin Cook will certainly help.
Another point to note, the Dolphins 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 home games against teams with a winning record, which is what the Vikings have right now. Let's take it on over to New Orleans, and we are eating beignets and talking about the Bengals because they are in town. Just when things were looking up for Cincy, they lose to the Ravens. Saints were on the right side of a shootout with Geno Smith and the Seahawks, thanks to how bad the Seahawks defense is. And also Taysom Hill had his coming out again party, I guess. 112 yards, 3 touchdowns, 9 carries, tank. Seeing a guy like Taysom Hill come back, do what he was able to do, help the Saints earn a win. Just how good is that to see as a former player too?
Man, I would tell you this. The first thing Zach Taylor needs to do once they arrive in New Orleans on Sunday morning, walk up to Taysom Hill and have the little Buck Showalter thing where you kind of touch behind his ear to see if there's some little special juice going on right now, because what he was able to do to the Seattle Seahawks defense was unbelievable, man. And I can't believe that for some reason they didn't have a clue that could possibly happen. Like, you have Andy Dalton at quarterback. You understand that you want to try to limit turnovers on short yardage and in the red zone. Perfect setups for Taysom Hill, and yet and still it's like they never practiced like there would be an opportunity for Taysom to get in the game, and he took full advantage. Like, this dude balled out, and it speaks to kind of what you alluded to at the opening, where it's a situation where he wanted to play quarterback. He doesn't want to play tight end, yet he goes and he accepts the role that the team wants him to take, and then he balls out and he helps the team win. I look forward to more of that, especially if you're going to have Andy Dalton back at quarterback going against his former team. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. But in order to just kind of cut to the chase right now, I mean, this is a game where the Bengals, I mean, that was a game that they probably should have won against Baltimore. Now Joe Burrow goes back to Louisiana and his stomping grounds against the Saints. And this is a game that they really have to win. And so you look at it from a standpoint where New Orleans gutted out a tough game against Seattle. Cincinnati goes into an environment where they must win. The Saints defense has been vulnerable. Maybe this is opportunity for that offense to get back on track. The running game shows some signs of life. If they have a healthy T. Higgins, maybe they can get the explosive plays back in the pass game. If I had to lean anywhere, to be for the Cincinnati Bengals to bounce back here just because they have to at this standpoint. But I really wouldn't. I really don't feel too comfortable about anything in this game. I could see it going under and both defenses playing well, or I could see a point explosion how we did against the Seattle Seahawks last week. So this one looks a little volatile to me.
You mentioned the Saints defense. They have the 6th worst scoring defense in the National Football League right now, which makes me kind of lean the Cincinnati Bengals here. They're laying 1.5 points in this one because you look at I know the Bengals and the Saints have the same record right now. You look at the 2 wins that the Saints have against the Seahawks and against the Falcons. The Bengals have 2 solid wins against the Dolphins and the Jets. Obviously, that game against the Dolphins was tough. The Jets have been playing really, really well. And then they played the Ravens extremely close. Jared, would you lean Bengals laying the points here, or are you kind of staying away from this game in general?
Yeah, I mean, this is an intriguing teaser game. You take the Saints through 2 key numbers. But I'll be honest, the injury report for New Orleans does not look good. We know about Jameis Winston. We'll see what his status is this week. But in the game specifically against Seattle on Sunday, Chris Olave goes down with the concussion. You had Lattimore have to leave the game. Marcus May was forced to leave the game as well. This is a tough this is a very tough spot for, I think, a Saints defense if they're without two of those key pieces in the secondary, especially Lattimore, who is, one of the best corners in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you lose Olave to the concussion. We all know how, conservative teams are now being forced to be with concussion protocol.
Yeah.
You would expect him to miss the week. Michael Thomas also banged up. Jarvis Landry also banged up. It seems like it's Taysom Hill, Kamara, or bust for this Saints offense. That doesn't leave a lot of, vertical threat passing if it's just those two guys. And I'm curious how well the Saints can push the ball down the field against the Bengals defense that, listen, I think they held up well against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I know, they missed some big plays, especially early in the second half, that probably stretched that game a little bit more. And I think if Lamar could have those back, probably makes those throws. You would assume Jameis Winston might be able to make them. I'm not so sure about Andy Dalton or Taysom Hill. So obviously the quarterback position for New Orleans is going to be key this week. Will Jameis return? If that's the case, will he have any weapons at his disposal? This is a tough game to predict. The Bengals need this game real bad because right now they're a sub-500 team and they're looking up at the Ravens in the division and they're looking up at Deshaun Watson coming back in a few weeks. And this is a spot where I think Cincinnati needs to pull out a win. Not easy to go into New Orleans and get a win. I did see T. Higgins practiced on Wednesday, limited. I also saw that the Bengals are going to be practicing in their indoor facility to try to prepare for the noise at the Superdome. Those are positives, but there's a reason why this game is basically a pick'em. I think you tease the Saints through 3 or 7. If not, you bet the Bengals or you stay away. It's not a strong look for me this week, I don't think.
Yeah, something to keep in mind. Bengals 7-1 in their last 8 road games against the spread. So who knows what will happen in this one? But let's talk about the Bengals, who they went up against last week in the Ravens. They're taking on the Giants, who I'm like the biggest Giants fan at this point. I love what the Giants and Brian Daboll have done through 5 weeks this season. I'm also a big underdog fan, but we'll get into that in a second. The Ravens had a really good close victory against the Bengals last week. The Giants having shocking the world, baby. Big come from behind win against the Packers in London. 3 rushing touchdowns from 3 different players. And the Giants' 4 wins, something to keep in mind, is only been by 1 possession, but a win is still a win. Tank, did you expect at the beginning of the season Brian Daboll to be coaching the talent that he has on this Giants team to a 4-1 record so far through 3 weeks? Or 4-1 through 5 weeks? Math, that didn't add up.
Well, regardless of what all that was, hell no, I didn't expect it. Because, I don't think anyone did, especially when you look at the Giants, like missing all their key wide receivers. We were talking so much about Kadarius Toney and maybe Wan'Dale Robinson, all these guys, being able to take advantage of the passing game for the Giants. But these guys haven't really played the entire season. They lose Sterling Shepard. And so for them to be able to do what they did against the Green Bay Packers, and you remember last week we were talking about this, where it's like, how are the Packers, how do they continue to be favored by so much when they had that tight game against the New England Patriots? Then they go across the pond and they're favored big once again, and then the Giants just do the unthinkable. And it's not like Saquon just blew up and just had this crazy game. He was solid, and Saquon is good, and you have to try to pay attention to him. But it's so crazy to me how the Giants and Brian Daboll find ways to win in each setup. And I'm looking at this, and trust me, I love Jackson. I think he's up there for as far as being one of the MVPs of the league this year. But when you see the Baltimore Ravens at -5.5, I thought I saw on one side, I'm like, really? The Giants have impressed me. The Giants are playing at home as well. This was in the contention of being my best bet for the day, just because I feel I have to give them some credit, because you have to look at it from this standpoint. We always have these narratives in our head. Look at the Bengals last year, where you just get so accustomed to being the Bengals are the Bungles. The Bengals are the Bungles until it's the Bengals are in the Super Bowl. This may be the instance here where the Giants are playing really good ball right now, and they're not even fully healthy yet. Wait till they start getting some guys back. And when you look at the Baltimore Ravens, what you just talk about, Jared, they left so many players on the field, whether it's Lamar missing some guys down the field that are wide open, or sometimes they have some questionable decision making, whether it's going for it on 4th down, kicking field goals and stuff like that. And when you're playing against some of these teams that are playing clean football like the Giants are, that's why they're 4-1 right now. That could be a differentiator in the game. So whether they win the game or not, I'm not sure. But hey, can the Giants cover at 5.5 or something like that? Hey, I think so.
Yeah, the one thing that worries me, I'm the biggest Giants fan, the fact that their O-line has created so much time and space for a guy like Daniel Jones, who's injured right now, hobbling around a little bit, and the gaps that they've opened up for Saquon Barkley has been phenomenal, honestly. And the way that Brian Dable has coached the talent that he has, it's so awesome. But the Giants have given up the 7th most rushing yards this season. That's the one thing that worries me is Lamar Jackson, being as mobile as he is, might be able to take advantage of that. Jared, what are your thoughts?
I think this is the Wink Martindale revenge game, right? Isn't he? Isn't he he was the Ravens
Yeah,
defensive coordinator? Now he's on the
absolutely.
Giants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I don't know if you've ever had. I mean, he's been in the league forever, Tank. I don't know if you've ever had any experience either playing against him or being coached by him. But he's like the most blitz happy defensive coordinator in the league.
And what gives Lamar issues?
Yeah, that could be an interesting matchup. Now, I'll be honest. I think the Giants' offensive line is in for a tough day here. They're grading out as one of the worst units in football, and they weren't really pushed against the Pack. The Packers' defense has been really disappointing this year, and
True.
I think they're going to get a lot more push from the Ravens this week. Now, you can make a case that the Ravens are coming off a tough divisional game. They might not be as fresh as maybe they would be. You can make the case, too, that the Giants are coming off of a really tough travel week where they had to go across the pond and then back. So I think that, maybe cancels each other out a little bit. I think when you talk about this Giants team, it's the explosion on offense that scares me. So this year, I give Brian Dable and Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator, all the credit in the world. They're making chicken salad out of chicken shit. The Giants
Hmm.
offense does not have it. They do not have a ton of deep threat
Gross.
weapons. I know that's how the saying goes, Lauren. I'm sorry to be very crude about it, but Daniel Jones has the fewest amount of explosive throws, 20 plus yards down the field, as anyone in the NFL. This is a Giants offense that's very much in a phone booth. Saquon Barkley running the football absolutely is an explosive, potential, but that's not a guy that's going to stretch the defense and take the top off of the defense. You're going to continue to see a lot of 8-man boxes against this Giants defense. Against this Giants offense. How does Daniel Jones handle that? This is a spot for the Ravens, I think, where they've had some really difficult luck, I would say, in a couple of games. You want to say it's of their own doing, blowing leads at home. I feel like the results for them haven't been indicative of how well they've played on both sides. They're a 3-2 football team, but arguably they've got the best player in the league and one of the most explosive offenses and a defense that has a lot of talent. I think this is a really good Ravens team, and I think we're going to see them continue to get better if they can just figure out how to button up the back half of games. The talent is there.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see Baltimore really, telling the Giants, hey, listen, we're a better team. You guys have kind of done it with smoke and mirrors. And they really put the hammer down this week. But then there's an element to this Giants team that's got a little bit of destiny to them where they've made some really nice adjustments at half. And that's something the Ravens have struggled with. Again, the second half has been an issue for the Ravens this year. And I think Brian Dable and Kafka have done a really nice job making those adjustments at halftime. So tough game from an against the spread perspective because I don't trust the Ravens offense fully enough to cover a 6. It's now moved to 6. But I think Baltimore does win this game. I think they're the better team. Top to bottom, nose to toes, all 53 players on the roster. I think the Ravens have better players.
Yeah, absolutely.
The favorite is 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 meetings between these two teams. The Ravens lay in 5.5. So if that trend continues, Gerard, you will be correct. Tank, you mentioned the Packers and how they've been laying big points against every single team, even though they continue to disappoint us as fans. This week, they're doing the same thing. They're laying a touchdown against the Jets. After the Jets took down the Dolphins in a grandiose fashion, 40-17. I loved seeing what Breece Hall was able to do. He had a breakout game, almost 200 yards, 1 touchdown, 20 touches. The Packers were up 17-3 in London. ended up dropping it to the Giants. They didn't use their run game at all in the second half, which was really shocking to me. And Aaron Rodgers wasn't on point in the second half. He was constantly under pressure. When you look at some of the calls made by the coaching staff of the Packers, Tank, why did they abandon the run game last week? And do they go back to it more this week?
Man, I really can't speak to anything the Packers are doing right now, and I can't speak to what the odds makers are doing, where they keep giving them like these big, like, I mean, how are we still at -7? In some books, there's like -7.5 for the Packers. Like the first three things that I wrote down is like, are we doing this yet again? Why they keep putting the Pack as the favorites? And don't be surprised if the Jets getting that ass, because like that's the way I'm looking at it right now. Like the Jets threw up
I love your
41
notes,
points.
by the way. Love your notes.
Like the Jets threw up 47
I want to
points
get
on the
inside of
Dolphins,
Tank's
dog.
brain with those notes.
I mean, but for real though, what are we doing? Like really, like you are what you in the white lines. In the past couple of weeks,
Yeah.
we've seen them play a New England team with their third string quarterback and get pushed to overtime and barely win that game. And then you lay a big number for them going across the pond to face the Giants. And then Saquon and them boys do work against them and send them back on that long flight, catching that L. And so now we're going to say, oh, we're still playing against the same old Jets who are actually like winning games this year now. They have their young quarterback who's able to sling the ball around. They got three legit wide receivers on the outside. This young running back is actually like being a hoss right now. You have a good pass catcher and Michael Carter that can come out the backfield as well. And this defense head of Miami offense, even though they were a little bit hobbled, that you have Jalen Waddle, you have Tyreek Hill, and all these other weapons, and they held them to that many points, even though it's with a backup quarterback. Like, hey, like this is another one that was in contention. Like, you really going to give the Packers like this many points yet again? Like, why wouldn't I take the Jets covering on this? Just the way that they've been playing ball on their end, and the way the Packers have been playing ball against their last two opponents. I mean, it's worth considering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. And I feel like it's usually hard to go against a pissed off Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers ain't looking like Aaron Rodgers this season, like the normal Aaron Rodgers that we're used to seeing. And I love rooting for the Jets. I love a good underdog. But in terms of total, Jared, the over is 6-1 in the last 7 Jets games against a team with a winning record. Would you say maybe lean the over here? It's set at 45.5 because I ain't trusting the Packers defense with the way that they've been playing.
No, and I'll get to the Packers defense in a minute. It's a good question on the total because it is hovering right around that key number of 44, which is one of the more key numbers out there in the total world. It's up now to 45-ish, but again, what have we seen from these defenses? Not great, especially the Packers defense, which again, I'll get to them in a minute. But let me touch on Aaron Rodgers for a minute because goodness gracious, Aaron Rodgers only has one more completion on throws targeted 15 yards or more downfield than Baker Mayfield this year.
Oh, wow.
How about that, Tank? This is Aaron Rodgers.
I'm trying not to laugh. That's bad.
He has 10 completions of throws 15 more yards down the field. Baker's got 9. I mean, again,
Wow.
This is Aaron Rodgers. This is not, the average quarterback in the league. This is the 2-time defending MVP. He has almost as many throws. Baker Mayfield has almost as many throws targeted 15 yards more downfield than Aaron Rodgers this year. And that's I don't know why there's been this just vanilla and just plain Jane offensive strategy with the Packers. Maybe they just don't have the receivers to run the scheme that Matt LaFleur wants to run. But this is a Packers team that's last in situation neutral pace, which tells me they have no sense of urgency on offense at any stretch of the game. It's just snail's pace to the line of scrimmage. We're either running the ball or we're dink and dunking it. It's just, again, this is Aaron Rodgers, the 2-time defending MVP. Where is the spice and the sizzle? That to me is what needs to change with this offense. Now the Jets offense, there's been some spice and some sizzle. They're 11th in EPA per play over the last 2 weeks. That is despite Zach Wilson in his first start back from injury going on the road to Pittsburgh. Not an easy place to play. I know their defense is a little down. And then the next week facing a Dolphins defense that's the most aggressive blitzing unit in the league. That's a tough ask for your second year, virtually a rookie starting quarterback in his first game back from a tough knee injury. So I give a lot of credit to the Jets offense and Breece Hall, as Tank mentioned, a big reason why. 35 totes, 275 total yards from scrimmage, 2 tutties in those last 2 weeks where the Jets offense with Zach Wilson's taken a step forward. And the thing that I really like to see, he's played 5 games in the league. He's a rookie. Every game, his carry load has increased. 6, 7, 8, then the big jump over the last 2 weeks to 15 and 18. So getting more comfortable, starting to play a lot better. And now the Packers defense, 32nd in rushing success rate. They're allowing over 50% of runs this year graded out as successful. And Dwayne Brown came back, the left tackle that the Jets signed in the offseason to replace Mekhi Becton. He was hurt the first couple of weeks. He was back in the lineup, graded out well, both in pass and run blocking. There is an element to the Jets' offensive line that's starting to get a little nasty with Breece Hall, and you get the pieces back at tackle. I could see the Jets offense having a lot of success in this game. Now, the question is, the Jets defense has really struggled this year. Is there going to be a moment where the light switch turns on for Aaron Rodgers? You hope, you would think,
we'll see.
But no, we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, the spice and the sizzle. Grab him a fajita tray, because those things are sizzling more than they ever need to and smoking more than they ever need to, and toss some red pepper flakes on there, because you need to give him some spice and sizzle. Woo! 2 teams, though, that have had a ton of spice and sizzle. Chef's kiss are the Bills taking on the Chiefs. Right now, the Bills laying 2.5 points. And Tank, I know that one of these bets in this game is your best bet of the day. Don't give it away yet. But this is the game that we've all been waiting for. And I honestly cannot even contain my excitement to see 2 of the top quarterbacks in the National Football League go head-to-head against each other. Bills coming off of a blowout win against the Saints. The Chiefs narrowly beating the Raiders on Monday Night Football. That was a crazy ending to that game. How excited are you, Tank, to watch these 2 quarterbacks and these 2 offenses go up against each other?
I mean, I think pretty much every football fan has just had this game circled on their calendar ever since last year. You see the way that playoff game ended, where you just felt that Buffalo just had the game. And for what Patrick Mahomes and those guys were able to do in like 13 seconds to be able to send the game into overtime and then get the ball in overtime and never give it back, especially after the way that, Josh Allen and then who just balled out with them last week, Gabriel Davis, like what they were able to do in that game. And then we just see a repeat of that just leading up into this game is something that's truly special. But I mean, just look at that. Look what Josh Allen could do, not only with Stephon Diggs, but with Gabriel Davis. We saw what Derek Carr was able to do with Devontae Adams against that Kansas City defense this past week. So only imagine what Josh Allen should be able to do with Buffalo. And then on the flip side, one of the questions that we had with Kansas City was like, how is this offense going to look with no Tyreek Hill, because you don't have anyone that can take the top off of the defense? Well, we've shown that Kansas City, they can win in different ways. And it can be Travis Kelce catching 4 touchdowns and only having 25 total yards receiving. Yet at the same time, he's able to affect the game in that way, right? And then you have like a guy like Jared McKinnon who comes in and he runs the ball well. You have MVS who can make some great catches in situational moments. And then you have some of these other wide receivers, whether it's Juju or McCall Hardman stepping up. So I'm not worried about the Kansas City offense. And so this is one of those games where I'm like, okay, Buffalo, we know what they can do on offense. Patrick Mahomes is still that dude on offense. Defense is going to give up some points, so I'm just looking forward to fireworks.
Whew. Yeah, I'm so excited for this game. The last 3 Chiefs-Bills game have averaged 66 points per game. That's quite a lot last time I checked, and I know the Bills are going to be coming into Arrowhead with a little chip on their shoulder. They're coming in after getting brokenhearted for the first time since postseason last year. Jared, when you look at this matchup between an unreal Bills offense, an unreal Bills defense, an unreal Chiefs offense, and a somewhat average Chiefs defense, how do you kind of lean in this one?
Yeah, Tank, what wins championships in the NFL?
Is it supposed to be still defense? It used to be defense.
Yeah, no, it's defense, bro. It's defense. You saw what that Rams defense did in the 4th quarter against Joe Burrow. It's defense that wins championships. Schedule adjusted defensive efficiency is the number that I look at very closely, because it takes into account the preseason grades and where these teams should have been, but then it also starts to adjust your defensive efficiency based on the opponents you have faced, which in the NFL is everything. Well, Buffalo, number 1 in schedule adjusted defensive efficiency through 5 weeks. Kansas City, 24th. you could start to see a divide here with where I'm going. But the Bills are very banged up defensively still. Tremaine Edmonds, Jordan Poyer, those are the key names to keep an eye on this week. Good news about Tre'Davious White being activated into his IR window. He now gets 21 days, but he's already been announced out for this week. So Tre'Davious White, the reinforcements are coming, but they're not there yet. And we'll see what that defense looks like this week. Again, if those key pieces are still kind of banged up, less than 100% or out completely, then you downgrade the Bills defense just a little bit. I'll be honest, I don't want to bet this game. I have my popcorn ready, and I am so excited to watch it. I think there's going to be points. I'd be surprised if there wasn't. I think I give a slight edge to the Bills. Motivation, maybe better defense, even though they are a little banged up. But I think this is one of those games where we watch, we learn, we absorb, and we hope to be entertained. Because what was the line in Gladiator? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Entertained?
This is the game for that. So, giddy up, baby.
I'm excited. Giddy up. I am so excited. It's the game of the week, the game of, honestly, like probably through 6 weeks of the NFL season, the best game that we'll probably watch. So excited for this one. Cannot even wait. Let's talk about some key divisional matchups. There's 3 big ones going into this week. The Jags taking on the Colts. The Colts right now laying 2.5 points. That total set at 41.5. Battle of AFC South foes. The Jags really struggled last week against the Texans after playing a close game against the Eagles the week before. The Colts are back to 500 after one of the weirdest and probably worst games I've ever watched in my NFL football watching career. No touchdowns, 7 field goals, 12 punts, and 4 interceptions. No thank you. I never want to watch that game ever again. It is a battle of 2 quarterbacks, though, that are struggling right now. Trevor Lawrence didn't have necessarily a good game at all against the Texans. Matt Ryan, enough said. You don't need to say anything else about how he's been playing right now. Tank, would you feel comfortable betting the Colts laying 2.5 points against a Jags team who just maybe had a bad week?
No. I really don't know who's going to win this game, honestly. I feel that the Jags have all the reason in the world to win after losing yet another game to the Texans. I can't recall the last time they beat the Texans, but I know it's been a while. I saw that stat floating around somewhere. And on the flip side, the Colts were able to sneak out a win in Denver in one of the ugliest games that we've seen. That being said, I mean, they're still a broken team. I'm not sure if Darius Leonard's going to be back. That offense is broken. Hopefully, Jonathan Taylor's back. They weren't able to run the ball effectively. The passing game is still non-existent. I'm not sure if Matt Ryan is going to be the answer to the offense based on what we've seen to start the season. And this is a game that the coach should be motivated to win. I mean, let's not bury the lead. Like, the Jags knocked them out of the playoffs last year, and then they mollywopped them again to start this season. And so it's like the Colts need to win this game to get like some good mojo going on their side. Like, I really don't know how this is going to play out. I don't know if the Colts win. I don't know if the Jags win, but based off what I've seen recently between both of those teams, I pretty much say that you can probably lean on the under and hitting in this game.
Yeah, the thing that makes me lean the Jags, I mean, the under is wild. It's like literally, I think it's the lowest total of the entire week, set at 41.5 right now. But for me, and what has me leaning the Jags, Jared, and I don't know if you agree with me on this, is protecting the ball is going to be huge for this game. Matt Ryan right now, it has been sacked in NFL most 21 times. He leads the league in interceptions with 7 and fumbles with 11. Now, the Jags are the 5th best team in the NFL with 9 takeaways through 5 weeks. And I feel like this could be a big thing that they really use to take advantage of to end up beating the Colts. So I'm kind of leaning the Jags getting 2.5 points. Would you feel comfortable betting that? Or are you kind of like, no, Trevor Lawrence, he ain't my type right now?
I kind of like the Colts a little bit here. And hear me out, guys. Hear me out. So this line was 7 when it opened over the summer. And now, I got in at 1.5 with Indy. So that's a significant move through the keyest of numbers, 3, but also through some secondary key numbers as well, as we're kind of buying low on Indy after what we've seen. And I would say after what I saw from Trevor Lawrence last week, selling high. I got same old Jags vibes from that game on Sunday. So this was a Texans team with Lovie Smith, who plays maybe the most vanilla defense in the league that's been around forever. Everyone knows what Lovie Smith is going to do defensively, and Trevor Lawrence had the worst completion percentage over expectation of any quarterback last week. That can't happen in a game where you need to be taken seriously as a division contender. You need to beat the Texans at home, or at least show better than what you showed. Again, I think you can make a case that Trevor Lawrence was the worst quarterback in the entire NFL last week. And we've seen his production drop off dramatically over the last 2 weeks. They started out 3-0. They were great. Over the last 2 weeks, Trevor Lawrence is 32nd in EPA, expected points added, plus CPOE, completion percentage over expectations. Arguably the most inaccurate and inefficient quarterback in the league, and he's turned it over a bunch. Couple of picks on Sunday. He had 4 fumbles last week. So Trevor Lawrence is showing that inconsistency that we saw a lot of last year. It was great weeks 1 through 3. Now it's not so great. Here's where I really struggle with the Jags. They lost their starting left guard, Ben Barch, to an injured knee on Sunday. They also have Cam Robinson on the left side at tackle, who's been playing well below expectation, and a rookie center. So now the entire left side of the offensive line, Robinson playing poorly, new left guard this week, rookie center. That if Shaq Leonard does come back, I haven't heard any news yet. Again, we're taping this Wednesday. Keep an eye on his concussion status as we head into the weekend. If Leonard does come back, and if I think Buckner in the middle, obviously being key too, but if you have an entire left side of an offensive line for the Jags that is playing well below expectation, and by the way, the entire offensive line for Jacksonville as a collective unit is not playing well either. They're creating the 3rd fewest line yards, and they're 23rd in run block win rate. So they can't run the ball, they can't block, and the entire left side's banged up or not playing well. That's going to be a tough ask for Trevor Lawrence on the road against the Colts team that was embarrassed just 4 weeks ago. Tank, if you got shut out by a divisional team and you got a chance to play that team 4 weeks later, at home, there is going to be some angry Colts players on the field on Sunday. Now, Matt Ryan, the numbers are ugly. I can't make any positive case for Matt Ryan, except when the game was on the line in the 4th quarter and overtime, he drove down the field and got a win. He now has 44 game-winning drives, one behind Dan Marino for 5th on the all-time list. Listen, I know the numbers have not been good, but this is a guy that still has a lot of experience winning games and has done it at a high level for a number of years. So you're asking me Matt Ryan to Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, the upside with Lawrence is higher, but the volatility more. I think now we are seeing a little more consistency. Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman getting healthy. The Colts have some extra rest after the Thursday night game. And the motivational factor here, despite the fact that Frank Reich's been brutal against the AFC South, 11-15-1 against the spread, I just see Indy playing a lot better in this game, and I think they're going to get a win.
Something that kind of supports your case here, Jared, is the home team is 7-2-1 against the spread in the last 10 meetings between these two teams. And guess who's at home? Indy. In Indianapolis, so we'll see how that plays out. We also have the Cardinals taking on the Seahawks right now. Battle of the NFC West. The Cardinals lost in a heartbreaking fashion again this season to the Eagles. Matt Amendola missed a field goal with seconds left on the clock. They lost by 3. And then you look at the Seahawks. Geno Smith has been reviving his career, but their defense sucks, man. Another unreal performance from Geno, but they cannot stop anyone against the Saints. Tank, your thoughts on the Cardinals laying 2.5 points? Like, being a former player, is a team like the Cardinals down in the dumps right now, knowing that they've lost multiple games this season in a heartbreaking fashion the way that they have?
I mean, I definitely know that they're disappointed coming off that loss to Philadelphia, because that was a game that they should have won. That was a game where I expected Philly to go into there handily and be able to flex that muscle on the offensive side of the ball, whether it was running the ball, passing the ball. I felt like they should be able to have their way against Arizona. And then Arizona really hadn't showed me too much competency on the offensive side of the ball to make me feel like they can, score with Philadelphia. That being said, I mean, they had that advantage of playing home. They played solid ball. And if Kyler just dives head first instead of sliding and them having to try to kick a field goal, then maybe that game ends totally different. And so when I think about now, the Cardinals are going up to Seattle, like, man, what's up with the disrespect for Geno Smith? Like, Geno Smith has been balling. Like this dude has been tossing the pill around
Yeah.
like none other. He has some dogs on the outside. Like DK is a beast, and then Tyler Lockett is still doing what he does, and that's running behind every defensive back that lines up against him. I understand that Rashad Penny, had to have surgery from breaking his leg, but Kenneth Walker, who tore up the NCAA last year, like yeah, he looked pretty good and broke a long run against the Saints this past week, and so I really don't see how, based off of what the Seahawks have shown me against a number of opponents and what Arizona has showed me against a number of opponents, how you walk into somebody else's stadium and you're favored to beat them. Like, I really don't
Mm.
understand that. So I don't know how the point totals are going to land on this one because I feel like both of these teams can break out and score a lot of points, or Arizona can do what they do, and it seems like it's such a struggle for them to even sniff the red zone of their opponent until the fourth quarter. Then all of a sudden, Kyler just starts scrambling around, and then they make some magic happen on offense. So I think, if anything, if I had to take a side on this, it'd probably be Seattle given the plus. I mean, I see on some sites where
Mm.
it's like +3. Like I would take Seattle, I think +3 in this one, knowing that they're playing at home, knowing that they lost a tough game against the Saints away, and now they get to come home and face a division rival that isn't playing their best football. Like that looks kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, when I look at this matchup, I'm like, I want Geno Smith to win a big game like this. I really do. But their defense right now is giving up 30.8 points per
Yeah.
game. That's the second highest in the National Football League. Jared, can they step up in a game against the Cardinals and help out their quarterback that's been having a phenomenal season thus far?
Probably not. I'm just being.
Poor
I
Geno.
don't have I don't have a ton of faith in the Seattle defense right now, and that's sadly the reason why this Seahawks team is not going to likely exceed expectations because Geno Smith is. They write me off, but I ain't right back, baby. Geno,
Mhm.
first of all, I'm buying that T-shirt. I am obsessed with that line. It is my new life motto. But the
Mm-hmm.
numbers are unbelievable. Through 5 weeks, he is behind just Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes in quarterback efficiency. He leads all quarterbacks in CPOE, completion percentage over expectation. He is straight up balling right now. All those numbers, I can give you all the nerd numbers in the world. I'll give you one word to describe it: balling. He's making throws on the
Mhm.
run, rolling to his left for a right-handed quarterback, throwing back across his body, right on the money. I mean,
Yeah.
he is making all the throws. And he looks happy, revitalized. Mental health looks to be at peak form. And as a quarterback, mental health matters a lot, a ton. You are the leader of that team. You need to know every piece where it goes in the puzzle. Now, the one thing I will say about the total here, opened in the high 40s over the summer, or excuse me, the look ahead line was 47. Then it reopened 51 and a half, and we saw a little buyback to the under. Your mind thinks over because of the defenses, but let's dig a little deeper here. So both teams bottom 10 in situation neutral pace. They don't really push the tempo. And this is something that is concerning to me. The Cardinals have not scored a point in the first quarter all season. And here's why that's
They're the
important.
only team in the NFL.
Yeah, it's bad. And here's why that's important. Tank, I know you know this. The first 15 plays are scripted. So that means
Yeah.
Cliff Kingsbury's script is like throw it all. Throw it out. It's terrible
Mhm.
because if they can't score points on script and they need Kyler to be nut job crazy running around to score points, it's too volatile for me to actually place a wager on because I don't know what I'm getting. If you're scoring on the first drive of the game, that means the offense is in sync. We believe in the game plan. We're marching it down the field. They clearly have no faith in Cliff Kingsbury's scheme, or Kingsbury's scheme is so cockamamie that it's not effective at all, despite the fact that you've got arguably the most mobile quarterback in the league. There's problems with this Cardinals offense right now, and I know that they scored enough
Yeah.
points to be in the game against the Eagles on Sunday, but if you're not scoring on your scripted plays, how can you expect me to place my hard-earned dollars on you in any capacity? So hard pass for me here.
Mhm.
That is crazy that when you think about it, it really, really is. They're the only team in the NFL that has not scored a single point in the first quarter. And Geno Smith, They wrote him off. He ate right back. Dude needs to write a letter to his defense to tell him to cover his ass, because at this point, they need to step it up and get something going for him. They need to earn him a win. But when you do look at this, Tank, and the trend that actually favors you here is the underdog is 11-2-1 against the spread in the last 14 games between these two teams, with the Seattle Seahawks being the underdog they are. They maybe could cover the 2.5-point spread in this spot, and I actually lead them the way that they've been playing and the way Geno Smith has been playing. So I am on your side, Tank, with this one.
Go
Another
Seahawks.
game that I'm excited
I'm a Geno guy now.
Go
I'm all in on Geno,
Yeah.
Tank. I love this story.
But,
I love
yeah.
guys that are down and they build their careers back. I think it's my favorite story of the year in the NFL.
Yeah, and that nugget that you said about the way he's
Honestly.
throwing the ball, that dime that he dropped to Tyler Lockett for the touchdown, like that was an amazing throw, bro.
Whew.
He's making
That was
throws that
unreal.
I didn't think Mahomes and Josh Allen can make. I mean, he's making some unbelievable throws.
Yeah, this past week went 16 of 25, 268 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's going to want to keep that going against the Arizona Cardinals. All right, one more divisional game to talk about. The Cowboys taking on the Eagles. Eagles laying 5 points. Total set at 42.5. Cowboys, though, one of the hottest teams in the league right now, and I am on them with the best defense in the league. They have 4 straight wins under Cooper Rush. And the Eagles, also the only undefeated team in the NFL after beating the Cardinals. Jalen Hurts had both of the team's rushing touchdowns last week. He's number 1 in the league. Okay, actually, I don't want to say this stat yet because this is going to play to my point a little bit later in the show. But the Cowboys have won 3 straight games against Philly. I know this Philly team is a little bit different than what we've seen in the past year and a half or so. Tank, and the way that they've been playing, the way Jalen Hurts has been playing, truly like an MVP this season. Would you lay the 5 points with the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Cowboys defense and a guy like Micah Parsons?
Nah, I wouldn't. I mean, this is a divisional game, and Dallas have shown that they can play solid ball against any team that they're facing right now without their star quarterback. So, do I trust Philly to be able to just cover that, the -5 that they're getting right now? Nah. But I will say this, like, it was a trap game, a potential trap game for them going out to Arizona last week with this game looming, because this is a big game for both of these squads. They were to pull out that victory. Now, their full attention is now squarely placed on the Dallas Cowboys. And I give the Cowboys full credit. Like we've talked about it before, how they've rallied around Cooper Rush and the defense is playing phenomenal ball. Philly's a different beast right now. Like
Yeah.
what they're able to do on offense, they can run the ball on pretty much anyone because you can always gain that extra blocker because you can have Jalen Hurts carry the ball 15 to 20 times if you want to. And if you want to try to be aggressive with them and have man-to-man coverage on the outside, Devontae Smith has the speed to go get you deep. AJ Brown has just that dog in him where he will muscle you all over the field. And Dallas Goedert is a beast in his own right, playing that tight end. So then you have to be scared of what that pass game to do. But let's switch it over to the other side of the ball because I think that's one of the most interesting parts. Like, do you remember when the Eagles played against the Washington Commanders a couple of weeks ago? Like, that defensive line was swarming around Carson Wentz like flies on, And so when the defensive line is swarming like that, then something is playing like shit. And so in that case, it was the Washington Commanders offensive line. But on top of that, I feel like the Philadelphia Eagles also have a really good front seven to where they can affect the game in that manner. And don't forget that they have that man, Big Pay Slay, playing on the backside to where they can challenge some opposing wide receivers as well. So I feel like this is going to be a huge test for Dallas because they've been playing solid ball. I give them their credit. Like you look out, they go to the former Super Bowl winning team and they go out there and they dominate them. But that's not the same Ram team that we looked at towards the end of last season. This Philadelphia team right here is legit, and it's going to take everything the Cowboys have and then some to be able to beat the Philadelphia Eagles if they're playing sound football the way they have been early in the season where the offense, defense, and special teams is clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, that is the storyline of this game is the Eagles offense going up against the Cowboys defense. The one stat that makes me a little nervous to think that the Eagles are going to go 6-0 to start the season is Hurts is number 1 in the league when not under pressure. 24th in the league when he's under pressure. And you better believe that dude, Micah Parsons, is going to be putting a lot of pressure on a guy like Jalen Hurts. Jared, do the Eagles start 6-0 through 6 weeks this season?
I think they do. The Cowboys have the highest pressure rate in the league at 33%, to your point. So that, they're going to get obviously we talked about it at the top of the show. Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, two big reasons why their pressure rate has been so strong through the first few weeks. You're going to hear a lot of talking heads talk about Cooper Rush being 5-0 straight up and against the spread this week. But let's dive a little deeper. In the 4 games this season, I don't care about last season. In the 4 games this season, Bengals, Giants, Commanders, Rams, all outside the top 8 in schedule-adjusted defensive efficiency. Most of them are outside the top 15. The Bengals are kind of just in the top 10. But that Bengals game, they scored 17 in the first half, came out hot. It was Rush's first start. Not a lot on tape with what he was going to do. Then in the second half, you saw the adjustments get made, and they scored 3 points in the second half and held on for dear life. So you can make a case where the Eagles, third in schedule-adjusted defensive efficiency, will be the most difficult test Cooper Rush has faced in his young career. Oh, by the way, it's on the road. It's in prime time. It's against a 5-0 Eagles team, a healthy Eagles defense with what I'm seeing, nobody on their injury report as of Wednesday. You could start to make a case that this might not trend well for the Cowboys offense. Let's flip the sides of the ball. Eagles offense against the Cowboys defense. Well, Cowboys defense has been fantastic. We talked about that at the top of the show too. I think Dan Quinn deserves a ton of credit. They lead the NFL in pass rush win rate. They were up in Matthew Stafford's grill all game long. Bad Rams offensive line, bad matchup for a statue mobile quarterback. Now they're going to face a mobile quarterback this week. Jalen Hurts just broke Cam Newton's all-time quarterback scoring record with his 19th touchdown in just 24 games. Cam had 18 and 25.
Wow.
Jalen Hurts has rushed for over 1,300 yards in his very short career. He has 22 first down runs this season, most in the NFL. Very different animal this week for Dan Quinn. You go from statue Stafford to now mobile Hurts. How does that matchup play out? The one thing I will say about the Eagles' offensive line, a little banged up. Jason Kelce got nicked up in that game against the Cardinals, had to leave, came back with an ankle injury. Landon Dickerson, the left guard, same thing. Leg injury, left, came back. Jordan Mailata, left tackle, missed last week with a shoulder injury. The entire left side of the Eagles' offensive line is probably less than 100%. That gives Dan Quinn a starting point for how to operate his defense. We're going to attack the left side. What does that mean for Jalen Hurts? Well, he's a right-handed quarterback. I would be rolling him to his right as much as possible. And I think in general, you would imagine there's going to be a lot of design quarterback runs in this game for Hurts. I think it's Jalen Hurts left, right, and center, and you sprinkle in the other guys as needed. But I could see Hurts just taking over this game if the Dallas defense doesn't adjust well to a mobile quarterback. And Tank, maybe you can offer some insight here. When you go up against a statue like Stafford and then you have to adjust your scheme to face a guy like Hurts, there's tweaks that need to be made with your scheme throughout the week, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. I mean, you have one when you're going against Stafford. One, he's a statue, and two, like that offensive line is terrible. So all you have to do is just seek the hounds on him, and you don't have to worry about anyone breaking loose. But with Jalen Hurts, I mean, it's comparable to when we used to have to face Michael Vick, where there's always going to be at least one player dedicated to spying him. And I doubt that they do this, but what if they're like, hey, Micah Parsons, like your job is to take away Jalen Hurts. If you have Micah Parsons spying on Jalen Hurts, yeah, you're putting the dog on the dog, but that also affects your pass rush. So someone's going to have to try to account for Jalen Hurts when you're trying to play man defense or something like that. Yeah, so I'm very
curious how that matchup plays out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, it's going to show itself in some way. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to go. But I mean, you raise a great point that there's going to be a cat and mouse, and there's going to have to be a way that Dan Quinn tries to scheme away, taking away like the most like lethal part of that offense, which is Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. The home team is 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 meetings. We'll see if that continues in Philly. You know those fans can be ruthless up there in Pennsylvania. Absolutely ruthless.
I can't wait for this.
It's going to be a great game. Honestly, that is the number 2 game I'm most excited to see behind the Bills-Chiefs game. A game that I'm not really looking forward to watching, both the Thursday night football game and the Monday night football game. We have the Broncos taking on the Chargers. Chargers laying 4.5 points. The total's 45.5. Showdown between AFC West rivals, and the Broncos have been absolutely underwhelming this season. And they hit a new low last week with the Thursday night football game against the Colts. God bless. Please give us something better to watch on Monday Night Football. Football gods, look over us. The Chargers are on a 2-game winning streak right now after taking down the Browns. Austin Eckler had 199 total yards last week, a pair of touchdowns. The Chargers are allowing the third most points right now, though, in the NFL. Is this like a Russell Wilson breakout game for you, Tank? Do you see Nathaniel Hackett, Russell Wilson pairing up and actually getting something done offensively in this game? Because they were not able to find the end zone last week.
Ugh. Like, I'm not going to be one of the ones that just kind of continue to
That's how
pile
I
on
feel.
Russ. But, like, I mean, they didn't show me anything against the Colts last week
Nothing.
that gives me any confidence in this offense. I will say this. I use my time to speak on this, like, Brandon Staley, like he's one of the guys where I was talking about overcompensating in the league. Like he's one of the main guys that I was talking about. Like how are you gonna go for it instead of punting on fourth down and putting your team in a
Yeah.
situation to lose the game? Like even Keenan Allen was calling him out on Twitter, and I feel like it's one of those things where a lot of this analytical decision making, which I believe in the analytics and things like that, but there's like also these instances where you just need to kind of use common sense and like judge the feel of the game. Whether it's like Zach Taylor calling like reverse passes in the red zone and like they end up not scoring deep in the Ravens territory late in the game, or you think about Josh McDaniels like going for two instead of kicking the field goal, or more importantly, like the roughing the passer calls, like the overcompensation on calling the roughing the passer in the league right now is just ridiculous to me. And I fit all that into this game because this game to me is just kind of the Chargers are a team where I feel like the pieces that they have on defense, the pieces that they have on offense, they should run away with this game easily in Denver. But the Chargers are known for charging, and you can't trust them. And because you can't trust them, I'm not touching anything in regards to this game. Like I just won't do it. So that's why I used all my time to talk about every other facet that happened last week instead of this game because I'm not trusting the Chargers.
I know. I don't trust either of these teams right now. And maybe the under could be a good bet here over the last 7 games between the two, an average total of 41.7 points between the two teams. And you have to remember Russell Wilson still has that banged up shoulder. Maybe he's going to be a little iffy, not 100% coming into this game. Jared, do you lean the total here over under? Do you lean aside? Do you just stay away completely? Because neither team's really playing that good of football at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you know that we've got time for this one. It's the Monday night game. So let's let the market reset on Sunday night. We'll wake up Monday morning. You and I will get up bright and early. We'll do
Love
Let's
that.
Bet It. We'll talk to Bobby Stanley and we'll get some props for this game because I'll be honest, that's really all when I look at the numbers here,
Love that.
It opened 3, it moved to 6. You would assume it moved because of the Wilson injury and the overall Broncos ineptness on offense. Total dropped the point. There's just not a lot here to bite into. Russell Wilson's looked awful. The Chargers have underachieved. There's not a lot of excitement. We talked about the other games that we're really excited about this week. There's not, despite this being a divisional game against two teams that were booked as two of the best teams in their respective divisions.
In prime time.
Could not have asked for a less appetizing Monday night matchup in the AFC West, which I thought was going to be the most exciting division in football this year. Maybe the Raiders and the Chiefs are really the two best teams. Maybe we misjudged the Raiders a little bit after their performance on Monday night. Maybe it's actually the Raiders that are the second best team in the West behind the Chargers and the Broncos. I don't know. But I don't really have any desire to bet this game in any capacity. We'll see what Bobby Stanley has prop holiday.
Yeah. We'll be talking about this game a lot this week. Unfortunately, I don't want to talk about the Broncos.
Talk about it on Monday. We don't even worry about it this week.
Yeah, honestly. The under, though, is 8-1 in the last 9 meetings between these two teams in LA. So maybe something to consider, knowing that the average in the last 7 games between the two is 4 points over, or 4 points under what the total is set at right now. All right, quickly, Jared, we're going to get into your teasers before we talk about our best bets of the day and wrap up the show. Teaser time. Give it to us.
Yeah, so teaser did well last week, Bucks, and it was the rare week where the teaser hit, but the spreads didn't. The Bucks were 8-point favorites, I know, because they won by 6 and we missed our best bet, but they covered the teaser number of 2. And the Commanders lost the game, 1.5-point underdogs, but covered the 7.5-point teaser. The rare week where both teaser legs actually mattered on the teaser line.
Wow.
This week, going right back to the, I know, so exciting, Lauren, so exciting. Going back to the well this week, I think the Bucs are another good teaser leg. You just can't trust Kenny Pickett right now based on what we saw in that first game, and I think he's gonna take some time for him to really get adjusted. And I think this Bucs team is kind of in cruise control. They have no desire to actually cover their big numbers. They let the Falcons back in from being down 21-0. They just took that lead and said, all right, we're good. We're going to coast. But they're still going to win games because Tom Brady's going to have the last laugh. And now that this Ravens line's gotten to 6, again, this is not a great teaser leg. It's not, for perfectly honest, I don't see a ton of teaser spots on the board I like this week. I haven't even bet this yet because the Ravens line hasn't really gotten to 6 yet. But I'm projecting based off of the early movement, it will get to 6. And when that's the case, you can move it to a pick 'em, and at least you get it, to a favorable line. But again, going from 6 to 0 is not the best teaser. You want to move it through both key numbers. In this case, we're only moving it through one. But the Bucs line, listen, if you have other teaser spots you like, the Bucs game needs to be in your teasers this week. I think the Bucs to -2 is a really solid look.
All right, we're going to get into our best bets in a second. But first of all, Pickswise Playbook presented by Superbook Sports. Download the Superbook app or visit superbook.com right now. And they're going to match your first bet up to $1,000. Plus, we're all now rooting for safeties. We ended up seeing one last week where the Giants ran the ball into the corner of their own end zone, trying to waste time like you see in a soccer game. So hopefully you won money on that. If you place a $100 pregame bet on any spread or total at Superbook and there's a safety scored in any game on Sunday, guys, you get a $50 bonus. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions and to sign up for the #1 voted sportsbook in Vegas. Now available at the palm of your hand. Want to know what I want at the palm of my hand, guys? Is your best bets because I want to win some of that money. Always the right color, always the right size, that green. Tank, I'll come to you first. Who do you have for your best bet of week 6?
I mean, well, LJ, you already kind of hinted towards it. I'm going to the game of the week, and that's Buffalo at Kansas City, and I'm taking the over 54. I mean, I talked about
Let's
all the
go.
points of why we should take this. I mean, Buffalo, that offense is just amazing with Josh Allen playing some of the best ball in the NFL right now. He finally got Gabe Davis going because he was dealing with that ankle injury. Oh, trust me, Pittsburgh and the whole league knows that my boy is healthy right now, and he has Stephon Diggs on the other side as well. And then when you look at that Kansas City offense, like Patrick Mahomes has found different ways to win. We know that Travis Kelce is going to be a major piece in the puzzle, but he has McCole Hardman. He has MVS. He has Juju Smith-Schuster. He has like some of these other guys like Jordy Forts and all these other weapons that they didn't have to pull out last week against the Raiders. And they're also running the ball a little bit better now that they have this blend of Pacheco, McKinnon, along with CEH. And so I feel real comfortable about both of these teams coming out. And both of these teams are like really excited to play each other based off the past matchups that they've had. More importantly, that playoff game last year. So I'm expecting fireworks. I'm expecting a lot of points in this one.
Expecting some of that heat, some of that sizzle, some of that spice.
Yeah,
The
that
over is
spice.
5-1 in the last 6 meetings between these two teams in Kansas City. Give them that spice. In the last 3 Chiefs-Bills games, average 66 points per game. So you're looking pretty if you're going by that trend. Jared, when you look at yours, you're expecting a bad team to come out and have themselves a week, huh?
Yeah, listen, I think if there's a spot to buy low on an ugly team that expectations were much higher and the talent level is still there, it's the Colts. And I know Matt Ryan has been bad. Let's just call it what it is. 26th in efficiency through the first 5 weeks of the year, but still figured out a way to pull a couple wins out of his belt despite a ton of injuries on offense and especially defensively with Shaq Leonard being the big one. We'll see if he comes back this week. But despite that and getting only 16 snaps from your best player, Shaq Leonard, the Colts defense is still 11th in EPA per play, 7th in success rate against the run. Another interesting thing that I've noticed about this Colts defense, the guys that they brought in, Yannick Ngakoue's been poor but a little banged up. Stephon Gilmore, woo, man, you want to talk about playing like a lockdown cover corner right now. Stephon Gilmore is that dude in the back for the Colts. So I like the fact that you get Trevor Lawrence coming in off of his worst game of the year, where he had the worst CPOE of any quarterback in the league last week, and you get that revenge factor of this team just got blanked by the Jags 4 weeks ago. They remember. It was very recently. It wasn't like they played in week 1 and they don't play again until week 17. Very short turnaround between one game 1 and 2 with these two division rivals. So even though Frank Reich 11-15-1 ATS against the AFC South, 1-7-1 against the number against the Jags in his career as head coach of the Colts, I still feel like this is a good spot to buy low in a under a field goal spread. You can still find 2 or 2.5 out there. This line was 7 in the summer. And I think the talent of both teams, the Jags shouldn't be, this short of an underdog on the road in a divisional game against a really good roster. That roster has not played up to expectations. If the Colts play to expectations, they will win this game by 2 scores. That's just how I feel, and I think this is a decent spot to jump in on the Jags, who also have some big offensive line injury concerns this week on the left side. Keep an eye on that as well. But Colts -1.5, -2, up to -2.5, I think is a very, very solid bet this week.
Hopefully Matt Ryan is that dude for you this week and he helps you win your bet.
Figure it out, Matty.
The Cowboys. Figure it out, Matty Ice. Matty Ice looking like Matty melted ice right now. He needs to freeze it up and lock it up. Okay, last one. My best bet. Saving the best for last, in my opinion. I like the Cowboys getting the points in this spot. They're the hottest team right now in the National Football League with the best defense in the league. 4 straight wins with Cooper Rush at the helm of this team. And I know the Eagles are the only undefeated team right now in the NFL after beating the Cardinals. Jalen Hurts is looking like the best MVP in the NFL so far this season. I'm making this bet solely because of that dude, Micah Parsons, and their defense. Their defense has been phenomenal. Like literally the best defense I've seen since probably the early 2000s, right? It's like the way that they move. It's the speed that they move at, the way that they use the guys. The other teams don't want to go up against them. People are scared to come and play against that Dallas defense. And they're winning the individual battles every single time. This is the first time allowing fewer than 20 points per game in each of the first 5 games of the season since 1972. I love how Mike McCarthy is coaching this team right now without Dak Prescott. But literally, I'm making this bet because of Micah Parsons. And one other reason is Jalen Hurts, phenomenal this season. He's first in the league when not under pressure as a quarterback. He's 24th in the league when under pressure as a quarterback. And you better believe that a guy like Micah Parsons is going to be locking in, looking him straight in the eyes and trying to sack him at least 2, 3, maybe even 4 times in this game. So I'm taking the Cowboys +5. I still think the Eagles are probably going to remain undefeated so far. I think they're going to win the game. I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to end up coming down to the Eagles offense going up against the Cowboys defense and who can stand their ground the longest. But the Cowboys 10-1 against the spread in their last 11 road games, which helps me out a little bit too. So that's it for us today, guys. That's that dude, Jared Smith. That's that dude, Tank Williams. I'm that chick.
I'm not that dude.
We'll see you guys next week.
Tank is that dude. I'm just a bro.
No, you're that dude.
Tank is that dude.
You're that dude, and Tank is that dude. Like, you got to, like, really emphasize it when you talk about Tank. And I'm that chick. We'll see you guys next week. Pickswise Playbook, presented by Superbook Sports. Best of luck with your week 6 bets. We'll see you next week.